hello, and welcome to this episode of Lend Me a Theater's new podcast, I suppose. We don't really have an official name for it yet. I am your host, Dwight Stearns, and joining me today is Zach Tber. He has written a new play that he is currently in the process of workshopping, and we are very excited to be talking about that with him. How are you doing today, Zach?
I'm doing good. Good. How are you, Dwight?
I'm excellent. I'm very excited for this conversation because I am very interested in what you are doing, and I can't wait to hear all about it. But before we get started on that, so we're here. We're dealing with theater. Theater is the telling of stories, and we all love stories. So I'm just curious as to what your story is. How did you get started in theater? How long have you been doing it? What are some shows that you've been in? What are your favorite things about the craft? And I'm just curious as to what what your history is.
Yeah. So I started theater. Originally, it was a cathartic thing for me. I really loved the theater. I love the ambiance of it. I started in high school when I was 15, so that was 2011. I'm kind of aging myself.
Oh,
Back in 2011. Yeah, and I've been doing theater since. I love it. Everything about acting, not just theater. I love film as well. Everything about acting is my passion. That sounds kind of cliche, but it's the truth. It's something I devote all my time to. Of course, other responsibilities like working, eating, and all that fun stuff.
sleeping
Uh,
occasionally,
but
right?
yeah. So pretty much uninterrupted, thankfully. I've been doing theater for the past was it maybe 9 years? Yeah,
Awesome.
a little over that.
That's
11.
great.
Yeah.
I know we first worked together in, it might have been 2018. It was with one of the Lemia Theater shows. I think it was called Death by Dessert. The Donna
Yeah.
Ducci Donna thing. That was the first time I got up on
Yeah.
stage with you. And
Yeah.
it was just like watching you from afar. We didn't interact that much on that, on it, but I remember just like seeing how like serious you were taking it. Even something as kind of silly and a not serious show, but you had a character, you embodied them. It was awesome to watch. Ooh, something, my lights are flashing here, please ignore that. So I it's been great seeing you go from like something like that to most recently, I believe I saw you in Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, where you had the lead of, you were Guildenstern, you were one of the two titular characters, I don't recall.
They're interchangeable, really.
Exactly, right? Yeah, yeah. During the show, they change their names back and forth all the time. So it's just been really fun watching you from afar and just seeing how that's been going. So I
Okay.
loving it. So
Yeah, definitely.
the reason that we have you here, speaking of stories, from one story to another, you've been writing now. I know you said earlier that your passion is acting and you want to be doing that constantly. So what made you make the leap to writing something? And
Right.
yeah, what did that?
So, I wrote this show a while ago, actually, to be honest. So I wrote this show in 2016. So I believe I was 2016. I was 19 years old, 2016. And I wrote this. It sprang from heartache, actually. So it was something cathartic for me. I wanted to tell a love story, but it turned into so much more. And after actually going through and reading it with others, I started to realize things that I hadn't even realized when I wrote the story. Um, it's still a love story, but I don't think it's all about romantic love. I think it's about familial love, romantic love, given, but also love for one's identity and love for justice. Um, so that's one of the things I like about the story. Why I started writing it, it was because of that. It was really just to get my emotions down on paper through something that is personal to me. My father grew up in Morocco, and it kind of tells a story about a piece of history that is long forgotten. It's not necessarily set in Morocco, but Al Andalus. And Al Andalus was right above Morocco, so the Iberian Peninsula of Spain, when it was ruled by the Muslims for 800 years, if I'm
Wow,
not mistaken. So,
longer than this country has been around. That's crazy.
exactly. Yeah.
So awesome. So what can you tell us about the story or about the play? It is the play, correct?
It's a play, right?
Nice.
Right. Straight show. So no music involved. There is one song that I would consider having sung by an actual live female performer, as opposed to an audio track. But that's very much background music. The play takes place, as I said, in Spain, so El Andalus, as the Muslims called it at the time, in 1492.
Wow.
We all know 1492 is the year Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So as you see, so Spain was the intersection between the Christian world, Christendom, and the Islam, and our characters altogether come from. So the story centers around a young Andalusian boy or man, early 20s to late teens, um, and he's kind of trying to figure out where he fits into the world. You know, he has this feeling of impending doom because sooner or later the Christians will take over the last city of Granada, which is the name of the play, Granada. So Granada was the last Muslim stronghold in 1492. And as you know, Ferdinand and Isabella, do you remember that from school, or is that
Very briefly,
gone out of your head at this
my
point?
history is you think you're aging yourself? Oh, dude, I graduated high school in 2005, so that my brain is a sieve, and I don't recall much of that. So
So there was a long struggle between the Christians and the Muslims to take Spain after the Muslims had conquered it 800 years earlier. It finally culminated in the Christians defeating the Muslims in Granada, the last Muslim stronghold, 1492. And a lot of Muslims, even to this day, look at that as the big loss of that country because it was, for all in all, they consider themselves the indigenous after 8 centuries, right?
mhm.
But I want to make it known that throughout the show, there's no this is Muslim land versus this is Christian land. I try to draw a balance. I try to show that both sides are correct, both sides are wrong, both sides have bad things about them, both sides have good things about them. So yeah, so it centers around a young boy who is facing impending doom. He's going to be forced back to Africa by the sword. He either will die, convert, or be forced back to Morocco or North Africa. And he meets a young girl who is from the other camp. So it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet story, right? Um, and this story is not only about it's not a religious story. So don't get me wrong. It's not proselytism. It has nothing to do with religion. It's a story that has religion as one of its focal points, but it's not a religious story. There's no deeper meaning, and there's no trying to get someone to convert or anything like that. The story is more about how one holds on to their religion through adversity. It's about a young man falling in love with someone from another side and showing that love triumphs over differences. And yeah, it's a father-son story. It deals with his father. It deals with the pressures of society and life, even within one's own society. Yeah, there's multiple concepts represented throughout the show, but I think that you'll have to wait and see.
Absolutely. So it sounds like when just like hearing you talk about it, obviously with your passion of it, it sounds like there are some like very clear and concrete like thematic elements that you have like woven into this story. And I know you said it started off as more of a romantic love and then eventually blossomed into a familial love and the other types. How did you discover that in your writing process? Was it something that kind of, as you said, like just when looking back on it with new eyes, like, oh, these themes were already here and you brought them more to the surface? Or was it something where you like read it and you were like, oh, this needs something more, let's add in more stuff? How did that process work?
I think it was in the process of writing it. It's a time period that I find very interesting. It's a time period that I wanted to show off because it's a largely forgotten time period. It's something they don't really want to teach you in the history books. That's what I think. I think it's something that they has been held from the history books for whatever reason that may be.
Mhm.
No, I think it's a time period that needs to be remembered. I said it in that time because I find the Mediterranean so romantic, as weird as that may
Yeah.
sound. Stories, think about it. Romeo and Juliet set in the Mediterranean. Really England, but
Yeah.
for all intents and purposes. Yeah. So I wanted to set it there. It was something that was close to my heart. Um, I think it had the perfect backdrop for a romance story. And I also got to kind of express things that I had already been thinking about because the show is not only a history lesson, the show is a comment on society anybody can relate to it, whether you're Muslim, Christian, Jewish, it doesn't matter. You can take a lot from the story based on the things that the main character goes through. Yeah, so it just developed as I went. I wanted to tell a story with multiple concepts in it. So I think it all culminated into this one mishmash of stuff
That
that
is
became
excellent.
Granada.
So you said you wrote this in 2016. What how many like revisions have you gone through? How many times have you revisited it? And what made you decide that now was the time when you wanted to start moving forward with it? Because obviously you're clearly taking more strides now to actually get this piece produced.
Right. So I had read it periodically throughout the past, what was it, 7 years.
Sure.
I've read it
I
periodically
don't know math
myself.
either, so don't
I
worry.
eventually I eventually consulted Mo Demers. I had her take a look through it. She gave me some very good feedback, editing things. You should take this many characters out. You should add this, this. When I had originally, when I wrote it originally, I had written it almost like a screenplay. It was supposed to be a play, but the things that I had the characters doing would only be possible if you were filming a movie or a show. And that was something that I needed to stamp out. I needed to make it a little more theatrical. And so I worked on that. And then I finally got the opportunity to put it up as a reading to see how it sounded to my ear, see what I needed to change, see what other people's opinions were. And we got that done the other night. I think that the feedback I got was very helpful. I think that it was thoughtful and endearing, actually. I think that they all had very good opinions. I actually did not think it would be received in the way that it was.
Oh,
I think that it goes to show how open we are as society now to discuss different topics, whether they be our own beliefs or whether they're not. And I think there's no community like the theater community when it comes to people who are open to learning new things and discovering new things about themselves and other people. Um, I
I,
hope that in putting this play, yeah,
I was gonna say I absolutely agree with you.
no,
I have always found that the theater community is willing and receptive. They want to be challenged when they're going to see something. They want to see a piece of art that is going to move them. They want to like go out for an evening and have something that is going to like challenge and just make them think about what they're being seen, like what they're watching. And I like love that about this community, that is a piece of our art that like we need to absolutely like foster and let grow. So the fact that this is like hearing this about your play makes me so happy. So that's great.
yeah, yeah, no, I think there's a lot to learn from the people in this community. I think the world can benefit from it. I hope that if this show goes up, which I hope that it will, when it gets on its feet, I hope that people take it the way it's meant to be, as opposed to the way they come in thinking about it. I honestly believe that we think that people are going to think something about our show. They're not going to like it. They have these preconceived notions, but just put it up and see how they respond. Because I think a lot of people are more receptive than we believe they are to be, especially in our political climate over the past, what,
Absolutely.
7, 8 years. So,
Circling back to the read through, so what were the things that you found surprising about the feedback? Like, did you have a character that you thought was going to be interpreted one way and everyone was like, oh, I see them as this? Or what were like the big things that like stuck out at you that you're going to take forward in your next draft?
right. So a lot of the feedback was centered around giving these characters a little more backstory. So they wanted to know why these characters were the way they were. My main character is very headstrong, and he will not waver in his religious convictions. This is how he believes life should be. And I kind of prefaced this at the beginning of the read through that he is virtuistic to an annoyance. He's very annoying. The fact that he is so virtuous makes him almost annoying. And young men like that. They think that they know exactly how the world should run. There's even a line in the show where he's telling the Sultan how do you know how much a procession like that would cost? Well, how would he know how much a procession like that should cost? If he's what, early 20s, he's never
Right? Yeah.
done, he's never run a country, right? But that's just the way it is amongst young people. They're very idealistic and they're naive. But that doesn't mean there's not something you can learn from them. Because a lot of times throughout life we throw our ideals to the side because society pushes us back. and we think that, I have to do what my boss says. I have to do what this government body says. I have to do what my parents say, right? And
Mhm.
we lose that angst kind of. And I think it's important to talk to young people so we can get that back, so we can strike a balance. Um, so yeah, so they kind of told me, create a backstory. Let me know why they're like this, because I want to be invested. I think they were invested in the characters. I think that it's more so they want to dig deeper into why they feel a certain way, right? So that was one thing. I had originally pitched it as the main character Ahmed, and we're going to do this as an anglicized version, just so we don't have to Arabic here. And so main character Ahmed, right? So he is supposed to be a vessel in which I express different opinions, different concepts, and different emotions. He's a character, indeed. He's a character in and of itself, but he's also a springboard for me to say certain things. And I really liked how Elmat, Lend Me a Theater, was saying, I think he's a character. I don't think we should express him as something that is, just a device, right?
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
and I really liked that because that means they cared about it. They cared about it. It wasn't just, oh, use this for this, right? I'm trying to use him for both, but it showed me that I really took them in when they read it. And I was happy with that. There's a lot of work to be done, and we're all looking forward to it. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
That sounds like one of the highest compliments that you could possibly receive, in my opinion. Just like what you created connected with somebody and it felt like a real thing to them. So that's amazing. Like congratulations on that feedback. That's beautiful. So speaking of next steps and moving forward, what is your plan for this? Are you gonna do more workshopping? Are you going to do another draft? If it actually does go up, where do you see yourself fitting in that production? Are you gonna be? Do you want to direct it? Do you want to just put it into the hands of other people? Where is this going?
So if we do put this up, and I really hope we do, um, it would. It's been stated that it would be next year, most likely, if we put it
Awesome.
up. Um, the thing about it is I still haven't decided. I still haven't decided. I wrote this thinking about the characters in a certain way. And as people say, that's my baby. I don't want anybody to meddle with it.
Hmm.
I don't necessarily share that same sentiment. I think that I want other people's opinion. I like to hear what other people are thinking so I can get a better sense of how others think about it. I mean, it's a story centered around something we don't talk about a lot, right? And so if I get people who aren't Muslims or people who aren't from a certain background telling me things, I'll have a better idea of how I can relate to my audience if it isn't already relatable in certain ways. So yeah, I definitely would want feedback from other people. I'd like to direct. They say you can't direct and act in the same show.
Ooh, oh, you
I
want to act as
originally had
well.
thought about myself
Nice.
yeah, I mean, I had originally thought about myself when writing this character. And I thought about my father when writing the father. But, but honestly, if I had to pick one, which I probably will, I'd probably direct because I could find a young man who can perform the role, who can act, who can do what I need him to do. Um, but the vision is still something very unique and something that lives in your own mind. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think it would have to be directing.
That's
Yeah.
great. Are you going to have your dad act in it as well? Or no?
No,
Fair enough.
never.
Too funny. Well, so this I'm really excited to see it. I really hope that you do get it up next year. I don't see why not. I would love to check in with you from time to time just on this process because this is just a really we're at like the genesis of something and the idea of watching something from nothing is always amazing to me. So the fact that you
Mhm.
had an idea and we are going to watch that idea
Yeah,
be performed by other people on stage here locally in New Hampshire, like with our local theater company, is so cool to me. So I'm very excited to watch this journey unfold, and I would love to chronicle it on here. So anytime you have a big development, please let me know, and we'll touch
yeah,
base, and we'll get this kind of a little documentary kind of made for you. Before we wrap up though, to circle back to compliments, while I have you here, I just wanted to say you gave me one of the best compliments I've ever received in terms of acting, and it was during the last show that I was in. Don't talk to the actors. You came up to me after one of
Yeah.
the one of the episodes. Jeez, where's my mind? TV. After one of the performances, and you said to me that you believed everything that I said. And I cannot tell you that how much that meant to me because I know how
Yeah.
serious you are taking like the craft of acting. So I was like, oh my god, wow, Zach thinks I did good. I maybe I did okay. Like I felt really really good about that. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. No, of
Genuinely.
course. Yeah, I
So
enjoy everything I see you in actually.
oh, I appreciate
So
that.
it's yeah, yeah. So no, it's always a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, speaking of pleasure, it has been a pleasure talking to you tonight. This was a ton of fun. Like I said, I look forward to doing it again. Thank you so much for setting up your time at the end of a rehearsal, at the end of a long day, I'm sure. So I'll let you start the drive home so you can go to sleep and start it all again tomorrow. So thank you so much, Zach.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, let's get this thing done.
Absolutely. You're very welcome.
See you later,
Alrighty.
Joy.
Talk to you later, dude.